You're listening to the Cricket Collective here on TalkSport 2 with me, Neil Manthorpe. And after a thrilling T20 series, although the last game didn't live up to expectations perhaps, our attention now turns to the 50-over format with world champions England looking to end their long tour of India on a high. Over the next hour, I'm joined, as always, by former England fast bowler Steve Harmison to look ahead to the three-match series. We'll also be discussing Jofra Archer and his ongoing elbow problem. We'll dissect England's 14-man squad and ask if some of the fringe players will get an opportunity. We'll also get the Indian perspective from our old friend, the excellent cricket writer and broadcaster Bharat Sundaresan. As well as that, we'll hear from England captain Owen Morgan, coach Chris Silverwood and Liam Livingstone. You're listening to the Cricket Collective on TalkSport 2. Well, Harmy, I don't know, people say, what's the point of these games? How important are they? And one thing that has changed in my years of covering international cricket is the pretense that all games are equal. For years and years, for decades, players would dutifully say, every time you pull the England shirt on, or whatever country you play for, it's the same. It's the same intensity. Every game is important. Now, that is important, but let's be honest. Every game is not equal. It's no longer that kind of society in that kind of a world, is it?
No, good morning, Manners. Yeah, it is a little bit sort of after the Lord Mayor's show, shall we say. I mentioned and joked the other day we should apply to the ICC and say, can we just sort of forfeit 30 overs of the first innings each and then play 3 20-20s, because it was an amazing series. But there are times you have to sort of tick boxes and go through the calendar. You have to play a certain amount of games, and to say it as simple as it doesn't mean as much. They'll spare a thought on someone like Reece Topley or Sam Billings. These guys are going to potentially play Matt Parkinson, Liam Livingstone. They're potentially going to play one of the 3 one-day internationals. So for them, it's going to mean something, and it's going to mean a great deal. To the likes of Stokes and I don't know, Rashid or Wood, possibly a bit different because of what's just happened in the T20 series. But it's still a game for England. It's still a game you pull the 3 Lions on, and it's one where I'm sure they will still have an eye on that World 2020 around the corner, and it's going to be intriguing to see how England go about it, because there's some marked changes from the last time England put a 50 over squad together. We didn't actually get any games because you were out in South Africa working for TalkSport 2. We were sitting in 17th floor in London, and the South African series got abandoned. So there are question marks on what England had then to what England have got now, and with no cricket in between, there is a couple of big omissions.
I'm not suggesting, I was never suggesting for a minute that any of the players are going to have trouble motivating themselves. I mean, as you say, you pull on the England shirt, it is still massive. But, it's not a World Cup campaign, and it's not a series in the build-up to a World Cup campaign, and it's a golden opportunity to have a look at some of those fringe players, if you like, although England's fringes are a lot wider than they used to be. There's 20 players who are easily good enough to play white ball international cricket for England. So I definitely wasn't suggesting that. I just think that, it is time now with so many fixtures and the congestion of fixtures to admit that all games are not equal. But you know what? England are defending world champions in the 50-over format. And Owen Morgan is very proud of that, and rightly so. He was speaking a little bit earlier this morning with TalkSport 2's Scott Taylor. Let's hear from him.
We have plenty of options. I think we're spoiled for choice in batters who certainly want to bat in the top 4. It's very similar to the T20 makeup. And again, throughout the one-day series, we'll see guys given opportunity more so than we did in the T20 series. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting. Playing 3 games at the same ground against a very, very strong Indian side is a huge opportunity for everybody to go out there and both get back into the frame of mind and the pace of 50 over cricket, but also, guys who haven't had opportunities to really put their case forward in both formats.
And there was a lot of talk about this series not being the priority with the Ashes and the T20 World Cup coming up, but any series where you head into as world champions must give you a confidence booster.
Absolutely. And I think when you don't necessarily have to be ranked number one in the world as well, but when you're one of the top ranked teams playing against another top ranked team, there's always a lot at stake. And I think, over the years, having not been considered one of those sides, when you play against a really strong team and come out of it having been productive with runs, wickets, and results, it does help build confidence and learn a lot within the team.
And what can you guys learn ahead of? I know it's not the same format as the T20, but you can still learn stuff ahead of that World Cup in October, I presume, in this format.
Absolutely. And I think trying to envisage where 50 over cricket is going to be in 3 years' time is quite difficult. So the challenge for us is always trying to explore and push the limits as much as we can, given the conditions. And I think in conditions that are a little bit alien to us naturally, like India, it's always nice to get out of your comfort zone and learn more about your team and your players to try and make mistakes and learn from them.
And Chris Woakes hasn't bowled a ball since September in competitive cricket. Is there a worry that he's not played enough cricket, or is it just part of the rest and rotation policy?
Chris was actually extremely unlucky in Sri Lanka, obviously to be in close contact with Moeen when Moeen tested positive for COVID, and he had to isolate, which obviously limited his availability around selection in the test matches. And then given the amount of time he's been away, Chris's mental health becomes an absolute priority over how many overs he's bowled or when he's played games. And this was an opportunity to get Chris home to see his family and to take some time off ahead of a busy rest of the year.
And we've seen the Test series didn't go the way, the T20 series didn't go your way as well. But is this a good chance to end a tour on a high? Does that give you even more motivation to try and win this ODI series?
Not necessarily. I think, even though we didn't pick up the trophy the other day, we've learned a huge amount, and it's been an extremely productive tour so far for us in white ball cricket. And I think with the bigger picture always being the World Cup in both white ball formats, you don't always have to win every series in order to win a World Cup. You continuously need to get better. You need to be tested as a side. You need to fail in order to learn. So that involves losing, which isn't fun, but it's part of the journey.
There's Owen Morgan talking this morning about the three-match ODI series. Jofra Archer, as we know, will miss the three ODIs and also the start of the IPL, but we're going to be talking a lot about Jofra in the second half, Harmy. So we won't go there now. I have to say, the Chris Woakes conundrum, the Chris Woakes scenario situation absolutely fascinates me. I mean, he's, to my mind, one of the best all-rounders in the world. I honestly believe that he would play in most test teams and ODI teams around the world. I think he's that good. He's got a central contract. He's been well looked after. He's been with England for the last 6 months. But the truth is, somebody says, so what have you done for the last 6 months, Woakes? He might well say, well, nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going through his mind?
Yeah, it's a hard one on the Woakes situation, because when I look at this, I think it is hard when no one says he's too close in contact with Mo and Ali. Yes, that was a massive blow for England, not having Moen, but not having for Woakes for Sri Lanka. And whenever you're trying to play catch up on a tour, i.e. you get an injury in the pre games beforehand, or you a little bit of bout of illness beforehand, it is very difficult to catch up, and that seems to be the effect of Chris Woakes. What smells of what Owen Morgan says there is, when it comes to the mental side of Chris Woakes, I looked at it one way and thinking this was the ideal time to get Chris Woakes in to play some cricket, 3 games. He's got to go through quarantine period to get back in the country because he's going straight into the IPL. There might be an underlying problem here, that the amount of time Chris Woakes has been away having a young family, he might have thought that was quite difficult, and having to go to the IPL for the next 8 weeks. Woakes, ECB, Morgan might be coming to the conclusion that we're not even going to give you an extra 3 weeks in India because of the amount of time you're going to have to spend in the IPL bubble. So that potentially could be one scenario that England might have been thinking of, because it's not on selection. Chris Woakes plays, not a problem at all. He plays in this team, not a problem. He was in the last starting 11 that was probably going to play in South Africa, along with Joe Root batting at number 3. So it is a disappointing for England fans not to see Chris Woakes, but I think when you look at the bigger picture, Chris Woakes is going to play 8 weeks, 9 weeks potentially of an IPL. So to add another 3.5 weeks on top of that, that might come into the ECB's thought process. But I'm with you. I think he's one of England's top all-rounders, and why he's not there, I really, really struggle.
It's debilitating, isn't it? I mean, I know that you've been on tours, and it's one thing when you're playing, even if you're losing. I mean, it's dispiriting, but it's debilitating. Never mind COVID. To spend that long with the squad and not get a game. I mean, it's like you and I, when the Test match finished in 2 days, we were at a loss for 3 days. Yeah. You'd rather be working. You'd rather be productive. And I just can't imagine. I mean, he doesn't know what his form is like.
Absolutely, and that's the problem that probably England had, and thought, you know what, let's just leave Chris Woakes to one side. He spent a lot of time, Owen Morgan saying, spent a lot of time inside the bubble without actually playing. He's going to the IPL. Just let him be. Let him have these 3 games off. Let's give him this 3 weeks off. Send him out to quarantine with his IPL side and let him go, and we'll see him in the summer. That's not a bad way of looking at it for me, as much as I would love Chris Woakes to play cricket for England. If there is an issue where he's had a little struggle inside the bubble, because like you say, man, as we talk about what the COVID effect world is in the game of cricket, I'm somebody who spent hours and hours and hours wishing in a place I'd never wanted to be in when I wasn't actually on the cricket field. Had a real struggle, and I was allowed out the hotel. So I can't imagine what the bubble life is like. So we have to put that into context, and I just think that is probably what has been on the selector's mind. We've got 16, 17 players out here for the 2020s. Let's pick the squad from here and leave the lads who... Let's not bring anybody over. Let's just leave them where they are. Joe Root can go and play for Yorkshire. Have some time with the family. Go and by the way, look, I'd back Yorkshire to win the championship, because if they've got Joe Root for 5 or 6 out of the seven games before the first Test match, they're going to win. They're going to win cricket matches. So, and the same with Chris Woakes. Just leave him be. Let him get him next part of his cricket calendar, which is the IPL, and we'll see him in the summer. And let's just pick from the people that are around here, because England have had a lot of people in their squads. They've not just had the 17-man squad they had for the 2020 or the 14-man squad they've got here for the ODIs. They've got 3-4 other players with them all the time, and one of them is Matt Parkinson. He's going to get a game, but even in this squad, we've got 14 players. But they've also kept David Malan, Chris Jordan and Jake Ball, who have been around in India for quite some time. So it's not as much as I would like to see Chris Woakes. It doesn't surprise me that they've just picked from what they've got.
Plenty more to come here on the Cricket Collective on TalkSport 2 with me, Neil Manthorpe, and Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. We'll be heading to Adelaide shortly to see how India's preparations are going with Indian cricket writer and broadcaster Bharat Sundaresan, who lives in Adelaide now, in case you're wondering. But next up, we'll discuss Jofra Archer and where he goes from here. You're listening to the Cricket Collective on TalkSport 2.
Archer in around the wicket once again, bowled in! Archer has his revenge. He's got 2 for 17 now.
He's clearly had a progressive injury that has become worse and does need attention.
In comes Jofra Archer. Oh, and that's a caught and bowled opportunity that is taken by Jofra Archer.
I think first and foremost we've got to get to the bottom of the problem of what's going on there. But first and foremost, we'll be making sure that Jofra's okay.
Well, you're listening to the Cricket Collective on TalkSport 2 and our preview of England's upcoming ODI series against India. We'll bring every ball live and exclusive here on TalkSport 2. As always, our coverage of the first ODI begins at 7:30 on Tuesday morning. I've got a whole bunch of questions that I'd like to ask you, Harmy, about the Jofra Archer situation. None of them is medical because neither you or I are medical people, so I'm not going to ask you the extent of the injury. But the two burning questions for me are: clearly he wasn't fit at least for the fourth and fifth games of that T20 series. So why did he play? And secondly, and this one really perturbs me, is what message does it send to Ollie Stone and Mark Wood and the other fast bowlers when Owen Morgan would prefer seemingly to play a 60% fit Jofra Archer than someone else who is 100% fit?
Manners, it's a lot of the time it comes down to the bowler and his interpretation of the injury. I'm just going from experience. I'd be wanting to play, even though I've got a little niggle. I'd feel as though I can get myself through 4 overs. I really do. And when you look at the fourth and fifth game, Jofra, I don't think his speeds were too far down. I think I looked at the way England's bowlers were more, I think, mentally fatigued when it come to decision making, especially in the last one. 5 games in 10 days was I think a big ask for the likes of Archer and Wood. So I think it was more mental fatigue than it was anything sort of physically. There is a problem there, like Chris Silverwood said. We need to get the bottom of it. And it's going to be interesting to see how long Jofra misses the IPL, potentially misses the start of the English summer if it goes on beyond the IPL. But the best thing for now, for me, for Jofra Archer, is to get himself fully fit. No bowler is ever fully fit, 100%. From a county perspective, you were fully fit on the 1st of March when you came back from 5 months off in pre-season training. And then from the 1st of March, your little parts of your body would be sore. And it was how you manage it. And I think what Jofra Archer's done is Jofra Archer's managed it the best as he possibly can. But now the series is over and you take stock of where you're at, then I think you have to look at a little bit further and what's ahead. And if a period of rest is going to help this elbow injury and eradicate it, then fine, brilliant. I'm really pleased for Jofra that he's come out and he's not putting 2 fingers to anybody because he doesn't need to put 2 fingers to anybody. But he's come out and he's right. I'm not putting England first. I'm putting Jofra first. My body is going to get fully fit and ready to go again for the next part of my career, which is the end of the IPL if it comes, English summer, and then obviously the 2 big tournaments at the end of the year. But when it comes to, from a bowling point of view, yourself if you can get through the game at a certain percentage and you feel as though you're not sort of devaluing the team. And I would imagine there will be the conversations I've had with Jofra for the 4th and 5th game, and Owen Morgan will again talk about trust. He'll trust his bowler to say, right, I can bowl at 90 mile an hour in both games for 4 overs, not a problem at all. It's the after effect of what comes with an elbow injury. Owen Morgan will have gone, right, not a problem, you're in. And I think that's how the conversation would probably have gone during that period of time.
Harmy, he's an exceptional cricketer. He puts bums on seats. I'd happily pay money to watch him. He's outstanding. I just wonder, there are others. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
definitely
a recurring theme. I would hate to think that he would become a negative distraction. It's been going on a long time. Jofra's elbow. It's been going on for over a year. And I just wonder, my point about the other players, the other fast bowlers, are they thinking, yeah, you can give us a go. There are others around.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with this, but I'd also look at it from a captaincy point of view, from Morgan's point of view, and a team point of view. If we can get Jofra Archer to walk out there, and he convinces us that he can bowl at the top speed, 90 mile an hour, which he did. What message does that send to the next door dressing room? If Jofra Archer's on that team sheet when Virat Kohli gets it handed off Owen Morgan, that sends a big message to the opposition. If no disrespect to Ollie Stone or Chris Woakes or anybody else, but if it says Reece Topley or Ollie Stone, it's a different feel. All of a sudden, you're given a different confidence off. Then that is something that, from a team point of view, but from Archer, if he feels as though he's fit, there's many times during my career, Manners, where I've not been actually 100% fit, but I felt as though I had enough in me to get me through that given day, that given game, whether it was anti-inflammatories or injections here or injections there. I wanted to play, and it seems that Jofra wants to play. And that's the good thing about it. He gets a lot of stick, this lad. But you've got to remember, this kid is a national treasure. He is some performer when he's on. He's still yet to have that light on, red ball, consistent moment where he goes to this whole new level. But that's going to take time because of the amount of cricket, of cross-format crickets he plays. I think if Jofra Archer plays for 7 or 8 years, he will have a very, very good test cricket record. And I think in the one-day format, he is box office. Like you said, you'd pay money to have him and watch him. So for me, that there says if I can have Jofra at any point, I'm going to have him in my team, regardless of if he is at 95% or at 90%, because it sends a huge message around the dressing room of the opposition that we've got Jofra Archer in our side and he can bowl fast.
I find it bizarre. You mentioned the criticism that some people get. He doesn't look fully engaged, and why doesn't he bowl at 90 miles an hour all the time, and why does his pace go up and down? And it seems to me, in my uninformed status as a never was fast bowler, to be pretty uninformed and really sometimes occasionally mindless. But as a fast bowler yourself and somebody who has bowled at 90 miles an hour, it must infuriate you when you see some of the criticism that he comes in for.
It does. It does. And look, I've been critical of Jofra as well, because I sometimes you do look and you think, little things don't help him. The jumper on around his waist, little things where he doesn't look as up. But this is the way he is as a person. And I think I've got to bite my tongue sometimes with that. We're not robots. It's not an exact science. If you are slightly off in your action, you're not going to bowl at 90 mile an hour. And I think over the course of a long day of 18 overs bowling and 90 overs in the field, these things do happen, and that's just the nature of the beast of Test match cricket. I still think he's waiting. We've seen some devastating spells in Test match cricket, but I think there's a time and a period round the corner. I hope it's this summer going into the Ashes, and I'll go on off experience. Mine was in the Caribbean all them years ago, where I'd been to Bangladesh, I'd played against India, I'd played 4 Test matches in Australia, but the light on moment was that period where I went a 5 for and then another 5 for, and then all of a sudden you now start to feel as though I belong at just Test match level and I'm a performer at Test match level. And I think Jofra's nearly there. He's not far away from that, and hopefully in the summer, if he can be fully fit, go through an India batting lineup, then go through them again, all of a sudden you might see Jofra go on a run and really be the all-round multi-format performer that we want him to be. But he does get criticism for the simple fact, for me, is because he is such a superstar, because he is such a game changer, because he is absolute box office. And unfortunately, Jofra, you're going to have to, that comes with criticism, because that's the pressure you've put on yourself by the way you actually hit international cricket with a white ball. Fair enough, but you're going to get that criticism until you do it with a red ball, over the course of a long period of time. And fingers crossed for England, it's going to be over the course of the next 9 months, because if England want to win in home against India or even have a chance to win the Ashes, Jofra Archer's got to be one of the big performers.
I was supposed to play you what Chris Silverwood said about the omission from the beginning of the IPL, Harmy. I know that you're pleased with that. So he's, the fact that he is going to miss the first half of the IPL. I know the Rajasthan Royals will be pretty upset about it, but let's just hear what Chris Silverwood had to say about that.
He needs to get this right. He needs some time to do that. So we've made space to make sure that we give him the best chance of being successful for England. And, all parties agreed on that. And obviously Jofra was very sort of keen on that as well. He was, he wants to be at the World Cup and he wants to be at the Ashes. So it wasn't a difficult decision by either side, to be honest. I think it was a sensible decision.
Well, still to come on the Cricket Collective here on TalkSport 2, we'll hear from England all-rounder Liam Livingstone. But next up, we'll be heading to Adelaide to hear how India are shaping up for this 3-match series with cricket writer and broadcaster Bharat Sundaresan.
Rohit Sharma has taken this one from Adil Rashid, and he's put it into the stands over long on.
Mark Wood in. Oh, and that's been clambered into by Rohit Sharma, and it's gone all the way.
Coming down the wicket is Kohli. Hitting into the leg side is Kohli. Hitting over the leg side is Kohli. It's all the way for 6.
As in comes Adil Rashid, and down the wicket comes Uriah Kumar, and just smashes that for 6 now. And that's flicked away on the leg side, and that's going to go all the way for 6. Hardik Pandya.
There's a sample of India's embarrassment of riches in the batting department. You're listening to the Cricket Collective here on TalkSport 2 with me, Neil Manthorpe, and the great Steve Harmison, and our preview of England's ODI series against India. If you've missed any of the show so far, or you want to catch up, you can listen back to the podcast on the Following On feed, now available via the free TalkSport app or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, we've discussed England's preparations for this series, but it's time now to focus on India and how they're shaping up, with cricket writer and broadcaster Bharat Sundaresan, my good old friend, joins us from his relatively new home in Adelaide. Hello, Bharat. How are you?
Oh, very good, Manners. It just feels like yesterday when we were sipping champagne at Lord's when England were crowned World Cup champions, doesn't it? It feels like it was only so much has happened since. So, yeah, doing well, Manners. How are you? How are you, Steve?
I'm very well, thank you, Barrett.
Listen, an awful lot has happened. The world's changed, yes. Barrett. But one thing that is not changing, it's still on the up, is the Indian team. They're the greatest team on Earth. They may well be the greatest team in this beyond Earth. It's extraordinary. I mean, there's unprecedented depth. How are they treating these 3 ODIs, do you think?
See, ODI cricket is interesting, Manners. It's especially in India. It's like the middle child, which does get love. I mean, it's cricket at the end of the day, so people will watch it. But it still has to do something exceptional every time for it to get a lot of attention. So because Test cricket, people will watch it. There's still a lot of interest there. T20s, everybody loves T20 cricket, and especially I just. While you were coming to me, I heard the excitement over in the TalkSport commentary box during those T20s. Yeah, they must have been very exciting. I was fast asleep considering the games wouldn't start before 1 a.m. here. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think they'll be received with as much excitement as the T20s. But it takes one Virat Kohli century to change all that.
Barrett, how do you think the top 6 of India is going to line up? Because there's some different players in from the 2020 series. I can think of the likes of Shubman Gill and obviously, Shikhar Dhawan was in there. But are we going to see, Virat Kohli back down to the middle order? Can they get Suryakumar Yadav in the same sort of form in the batting lineup as maybe Shiraz Iyer, or is it going to be KL Rahul's time to shine for 3 games because he's had a little bit of a lean spell and a quiet spell when it comes to game time?
Yeah, I mean, the last ODI series they played was in Australia, and the one thing they struggled with was bowling options. They had to play just 5 bowlers because they had a lengthy tail, and Hardik Pandya wasn't bowling enough, and he wasn't bowling fit at that point. KL Rahul, you speak about now with Rishabh Pant being the player he's become in the last 3 months. KL Rahul might miss out because KL Rahul has been playing as a wicketkeeper and a sort of finisher in that middle order. But now with Rishabh Pant back, maybe KL Rahul misses out. He's not been in the best of form. Rohit Sharma was missed in Australia, so he looked like he's getting better and better with each outing. So he should get right back on top. Shikhar Dhawan and Rohit Sharma have been such a formidable opening combination for so many years. Maybe the only way I look at KL Rahul playing is if he goes back to the top of the order in place of Shikhar Dhawan. But the return of Hardik Pandya, the bowler, adds a lot of balance. And I won't be surprised if, I know you asked me about the top 6, but Krunal Pandya comes in as a like-for-like replacement for Jadeja, but he's also been in extraordinary form. So that will just add so much more depth to this Indian team, because it was lacking during that series in Australia.
Barrett, I know there are 2 words that can get you talking for half an hour, but I'll have to rein you in. Those 2 words are Virat Kohli. So what's the word on the? What's the word on the quiet? I'm sure you might have heard what happened between him and Jos Buttler. When Buttler was dismissed, Kohli said something to him which obviously caused Buttler to stop on his way back to the change room. He turned and walked 3 or 4 quite aggressive paces towards Kohli. For a brief moment there, we were worried that he might lift his bat and stuff. But were you expecting any action to be taken against Virat, or at least the match referee to say something?
That was pretty extreme. It looked like I don't know what, because it takes a lot to get Jos Buttler all riled up. Like, he's the coolest cat on the field generally. Maybe he was talking about Ravichandran Ashwin and the Mankad with the IPL coming up. I don't know. But it sounded like there was some angry words there. But I'd be surprised if no action gets taken, because it did not look good on camera. And these days, that counts for a lot more. And I'll stop myself there, Manas.
And what about the roadshow moves to Pune? What are we expecting that's going to be like? It's a little bit of it seems to be a bigger ground, slower pitch. Is it going to be more spin friendly? And the quick bowlers are not going to be as effective.
Pune is an interesting ground. It makes me homesick, because every time there was a game in Pune, and you said road show as well, so I used to get onto the wonderful Bombay-Pune highway and drive down to that ground. It's a lovely venue. It's open. You can see the hill on one side, and it's just off the highway. And there are a few balls which land up on the highway, because it's a ground where the ball travels a long way. A lot of runs do get scored. It's not been the most spin-friendly wicket, and I'm sure England will not have forgotten their last game there when they made 350 and Kedar Jadhav scored an extraordinary, again, brilliant century, and they chased it down in India. So a lot of runs do get scored there, but India were beaten last time they played an ODI in Pune. And more than anything, you'll see a lot of pictures of dogs, because it's famous for having this massive kennel which has all sorts of dogs. And now I don't know whether the spectators are allowed or not for this series. So they'll be the only audience, more or less. And it's like I said, there will be some bounce on the pitch, though. So I've seen some guys who hit the pitch kind of benefit from that pitch. So it'll be interesting to see, but there will be a lot of runs scored.
And finally, Barrett, or it may not be finally, but is attention so firmly shifted now towards the IPL that's all that Indian fans are focusing on now? And your thoughts about the expansion of the IPL from next year onwards? I mean, it's taking over much as many of us predicted it would a few years ago.
Yeah, it was inevitable, right, man? It was always going to get bigger and brighter, and more teams, more players. So it is an unstoppable beast, which the IPL. You see it with broadcast rights. You see it with the money that gets paid for players these days. I'm sure Steve Harmison is just like every cricketer who just missed the IPL is ruining the fact that it's around now. Big fast bowlers are going for a lot of money, Steve.
They are going for a lot of money.
They really are a good time to be a fast bowler. And the thing is, yes, the attention would slowly shift. You saw even when Prasidh Krishna was picked, I saw there was some people who are like a little angry on Twitter, because people kept referring to him as Kolkata Knight Riders Prasidh Krishna and not Karnataka's Prasidh Krishna. So the focus has shifted. Like I said, one-day cricket, there's nothing really to look forward to. The World Cup will be in India, but that's 2 years from now. But no stopping the IPL, man.
Indeed. Well, let's hope that the biosecure bubble is intact. I mean, are they still using 5 venues? They were planning on using just 3.
Yeah, I think they expanded it to 6, but it's I use an Aussie expression here. Like, I've spent 2.5 years. It's a moving feast, mate. So everything's still up in the air. Maharashtra, for example, where I think Mumbai was one of the venues. So it's going back into sort of a semi-lockdown. The case is rising again. So you never know till the IPL starts how it's going to be held. But that's one thing we know with the BCCI and the IPL. They'll make it happen somehow or the other. But as of now, I think it's still 6 venues.
Fantastic to talk to you, my old friend. Cheers, Barrett. Keep well.
Cheers, guys. Yeah, always a pleasure.
You're listening to the Cricket Collective here on TalkSport 2 with me, Neil Manthorpe, and former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. In the final part of the show, we'll discuss the importance of the series again and hear from England all-rounder Liam Livingstone.
Coming down the wicket is Kohli. Hitting into the leg side is Kohli. Hitting over the leg side is Kohli. It's all the way for 6. One slip for Wood as he goes into Rahul bowled in! Middle stump at 45 degrees.
Chahal in again. Butler's down the wicket again. Butler smashed him for 6 again. In again, Chahal, and he's just smashed back over his head by Bairstow for another huge 6. Mark Wood in. Oh, and that's been clambered into by Rohit Sharma, and it's gone all the way.
You're listening to the Cricket Collective here on TalkSport 2 and our preview of England's upcoming ODI series against India. We'll bring you every ball live and exclusive here on TalkSport 2, and our coverage of the first ODI begins at 7:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Harmy, we spoke briefly about some of the fringe players. Reece Topley, you mentioned. Matt Parkinson. I'd like to ask you about him and his chances of playing as a second spinner. I presume he'll be a second spinner behind Moeen Ali. But first of all, we mentioned in the very first part of the programme Joe Root not being there. So I meant to ask you then, who's going to bat at 3, do you think?
I just think it's going to be Ben Stokes. I don't see how anybody else fits in other than Stokes. If we go off the last team that was going to play in South Africa, Roy, Bairstow, Stokes was the omission. He was having a rest, but he wasn't involved. Sorry. So you had Roy, Bairstow. It would have been Root, Morgan, Billings, Butler, Moeen Ali. That would have been the top 7. The only difference in this squad is Stokes for Root in that respect. So I can only see Billings isn't going to bat 3. I can't see them sticking with Joss Butler at the top of the order. Then Bairstow batting 3. If they do that, they've pulled a left field one. Do they go Moeen Ali at number 3 to get an extra bowler in the side potentially? But the way I look at it, Billings has done well in one-day cricket in recent times. Butler's a keeper. Morgan's a captain. Bairstow and Roy are your World Cup openers who have did really, really well. Ben Stokes, a Premier all-rounder who bats at 3. I actually think it's a good thing for England, and it's a good thing for Ben because he hasn't had the time in the middle he would like, and this is potentially the time in the middle that he possibly needs going into the IPL and then into the summer, just to really give him a kickstart. So for me, Ben Stokes bats at number 3.
One man you didn't mention there is Liam Livingstone.
Yeah.
I wonder whether he sees himself as a potential number 3. But he was talking a little bit earlier this week about the step up from domestic cricket to international cricket and being a massive learning curve.
I said in the 3 or 4 years since I made my debut, I was probably in the worst place cricket-wise I could have been in when I played them couple of games. I tried to make a change in my technique 2 or 3 weeks before, and it completely didn't work for me. And I think ultimately, looking back, it was a really steep learning curve for me. And I guess it probably did me some good in the next couple of years. It sort of gave me a kick up the backside and made me work harder. And like I said, I'm a completely different person now, completely different player. I'm really confident in my game at the moment, and it's nice to be back in this environment and feel like I belong here. So. Yeah, like I said, if I get an opportunity, I'm sure things will be much different this time around.
I described him as an all-rounder, which may be slightly flattering. He's a batsman who bowls a bit. Matt Parkinson is certainly a bowler, and the perceived wisdom, Harmy, from some people is that Matt Parkinson is, as a leg spinner, a little bit too slow through the air. That he doesn't have that zip that can be so important, and that I've heard it said that because he plays his home games at Old Trafford, which is one of England's bigger grounds, he has more people caught on the boundary than other spinners might have the luxury of doing. Is that all totally unfair?
I think it's a tad unfair. I think if you get picked for an international, you've in squads, and the invested a lot of time and resources into Matt Parkinson to hope that he develops, and this could be a chance to have a look and see what he's about. They've only picked 14 men and a 14-man squad, so they've got 3 quite experienced players on the sidelines in reserve, but the look at the likes of Liam Livingston and Matt Parkinson, will Morgan give them a chance to have a go in possibly 2 out of the 3 games? And you just never know, Manners, do you? Really, you've been around quite a bit of international cricket, and you have this perception of a player coming in, whether he's a fast bowler, does he bowl too short, does he bowl too full, how does he cope with the atmosphere? Well, Matt Parkinson's going to get his chance. If people think he does bowl bad balls that get wickets on the boundary, then let's see what he's got. If he bowls too slow, can we make a judgment when he's playing against the likes of Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma and all these guys? So it'll be an exciting time for Matt Parkinson if he does get a game. I've seen enough of him to think that the kid does bowl some wicket-taking balls. Yes, there's some bad balls in there, but that's leg spin. So does Adil Rashid, and he's been one of England's best ball performers for a number of years now. How do you fit them both in the same side? I don't think you can. So it'll be a case of if Parkinson plays, Rashid doesn't, because I would imagine all the stuff that's been said, Moeen Ali will play all three of the one days, the 50 over games, batting at number 7 and bowling his 10 overs. So it'll be a case of which leg spinner plays. I'd imagine Rashid will play the first. And fingers crossed, hopefully Parkinson gets a second, and all them questions that everybody's asking will be asked of the young Lancastrian, and fingers crossed he's got positive answers, because we know when we talk about cricket, Manners, we love a leg spinner, we love a fast bowler, we love somebody different. And if we can unearth a little gem in Parkinson, fingers crossed for England.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And also, if Matt Parkinson doesn't play, it's going to be a heck of a long time in the subcontinent for
absolutely.
him, a bit like Chris Woakes. So let's hope he does get a game. Now let's talk Reece Topley. Are you a fan?
Yes, I am a fan. It's just Reece Topley's another one. How long can you keep Reece fit for? When he first came on the scene, it was just after the time that when England won the T20 and World Cup in 2010, and all the talk of 2020 stuff was left armour. We've got to have a left armour. Ryan Sidebottom was brilliant for England, and Reece Topley came about just after that, a few years after that, and England thought, well, we've got another one here. Can we build a bowling attack in the shorter format around a big, tall left armour? And it was just a case of keeping Reece on the park, and there's no question for me on his ability. It's just a little bit like the Mark Woods and a few others, that how many times can you get them in a row to play a game? So I think gently, you'll probably play a couple of games. We've got a shorter left armour in Sam Curran, relatively similar speeds in around that 80 mile an hour mark. Both swing it. So it'll be a case of how much Owen Morgan wants to tinker and have a look at his bowling attack. Imagine the top 7 will pretty much look the same from a batting point of view. And it'll be a case of can Reece Topley force his way in and potentially play 2 games with the brand new white ball. I can't imagine Mark Wood playing all 3 50 over cricket matches in a short space of time after the T20s, 5 games in 10 days. So I would imagine there'll be a lot of tinkering with the bowling side of it, and Reece is going to get his chance. He's not express pace. He's not whippy through the air or on action. He's quite languid when he comes in. But he swings the ball, he hits the deck hard, he's a different angle. And again, alongside, like Matt Parkinson, hopefully he's going to get his chance to shine and let England supporters see what he's got and see what future is out there for England's attack. Because, again, said it, in all formats of the game, if you've got a left armour who can swing the ball, you've got ridiculous options when it comes to the bowling department with Wood, Archer, Stone, and then the Broad and Anderson. If you can put a left armour in there who can swing it, England have got all bases covered.
Army, just finally, it's occurred to me that your mate, Mark Wood, might be the perfect replacement for Jofra Archer for that first half of the IPL. And Rajasthan Royals Director of Cricket, Kumar Sangakkara, justified spending over $1.5 million on Chris Morris because he said he wanted someone to back up Jofra, and so that was going to be the backbone of their attack. Now Jofra's not going to be there, at least for the first half. Mark Wood would be the perfect replacement, wouldn't he?
He would, for me. I don't see anybody else around the world who has got the experience in India where they are now just to ask him to stay on. But whether the ECB would be too happy with that, I think if I was Mark Wood, as much as I'd want to be coming home because I could get my family back out into India if they were willing to come out there, I think I'd rather be bowling in the IPL than bowling at Durham in April and early May in 3, 4, possibly 5 degrees. It could be a different place to bowl. But Manners, I'm all with you. I think if Rajasthan are looking for a replacement, a wicket-taking replacement, I don't think there'll be many better bowlers the way they're bowling at the minute than Mark Wood, or a different option would be someone like Adil Rashid. So for me, Kumar Sangakkara has to have a good look at what's happening with this England team over the course of these 3 games. And if Wood bowls anywhere near as fast as he did for England in the 2020s, I think a tap on the shoulder, because there's a relationship there. Mark Wood and Kumar Sangakkara played a bit of cricket together at Durham. I know Mark Wood speaks very highly of Kumar, and for me, I would have a conversation to see if I could get him to replace Jofra Archer.
Great stuff, Harmy. Wonderful as always. No doubt we'll be chatting again soon. So England lose the Test match series 3-1 and the T20 series 3-2. Can they bounce back with a consolation victory in the 3 one-day internationals? You've been listening to the Cricket Collective on TalkSport 2 and our preview of England's upcoming ODI series against India. Don't forget, you can hear live and exclusive ball-by-ball commentary of the 3 matches here on TalkSport 2 starting this Tuesday morning at 7:30. Thanks for listening to the Cricket Collective on TalkSport 2.